Professor Majumdar, the Chancellor at Symbiosis, Professor Philip Albert, the distinguished scholar who's been awarded D.Litt, Sri Rahul Bajaj, well known in India's business and public affairs. And this is one of the several honors that he's received in his life. Other distinguished ladies and gentlemen on the dais, those present in this convocation, members of the teaching faculty at Symbiosis and students. Let me at the very outset thank Professor Majumdar and his other colleagues for having invited me to be associated with the 14th convocation at the Symbiosis. I have of course had the privilege of being at Symbiosis and at this campus a few years earlier. And at that time this was still a campus in the making. And almost year by year we can see Symbiosis literally expanding in size and leaving its geographical footprints across in India. I'm particularly delighted that your international focus has been one of the key emphases at Symbiosis, and your ability to attract and educate students from all over the world in this campus and the other Symbiosis campus is something that you are particularly aiming at. It was only symbolic that a lady from Afghanistan studying at this campus has been selected as the Foreign Student of the Year, because it also represents the aspiration of a society which is struggling to emerge. And for a lady emerging from that society to take up that challenge, I think does a considerable amount of credit to her and to the institution itself. When a number of students from foreign countries came and planted the flag of their countries, I think one fact to remember today, particularly being the 17th of December, that 46 years ago, this was the day on which our friendly neighbor Bangladesh was born. I do believe that what the professor said, and a point which Professor Majumdar made, is of some relevance. Professor Majumdar made a comment about a judicial opinion that he can't use the word university. And the professor reminded us, Professor Philip reminded us of the fact that there's a lot more we have to do in the field of education. All I can say is that both of you referred to two important sectors of India which have to really start reforming themselves. We've seen in the last 2.5 decades an aspirational India, India trying to reform in various sectors. And obviously there are some sectors which have remained untouched. And I think the point that both of you made with regard to two specific sectors really refer to those where changes, reforms, improvements are already belated. And therefore, in times to come, we really have to think in terms of the roadmap ahead as far as these sectors are concerned. Particularly with regard to education, I think we have to realize the importance. We are a country with a very large population. And a country with a very large population obviously can see the population either as an asset or as a liability. It still will be some time before we can stabilize the size of our population. How do we then use this as the best available human resource? Government jobs itself may not be sufficient to absorb too many. Mr. Rahul Bajaj expressed a hope that industry expanding and manufacturing expanding itself can absorb some. But we must realize a limitation where many industrial revolutions bypassed India. And it is only in the recent decades that a special emphasis on manufacturing has begun, where mass jobs exist. Our service sector is buoyant, but our agriculture suffers from underemployment. Too many people where the income parameters are relatively lesser. And the world is itself facing a different situation. There are most economies in the world where population sizes are going down. The replacement of 2 by 2 doesn't exist. That's not so in India. And therefore a demographic differential does get created. India therefore has the potential to train and create those human minds, the best of human resource, which not only can add to our own society and economy, but which can also go and service various economies in the world which suffer from population inadequacies. In one sense, it's already happening. But to catalyze this, we need to unleash our energies as far as education is concerned. We've seen in the field of economy what happened prior to 1991, what happened subsequent to 1991. We can see the sea change once we unleashed and liberated human energies. Restrictions were never helpful. They only held us back. And therefore, now that we have a lot of private sector interest, a lot of philanthropy, a lot of trust, a lot of people committed to expanding education outside the government sphere also, we need the resources both of the government and those outside to actually not allow these islands of excellence like Symbiosis, but to have a huge and a large number of institutions of this kind with a capacity to turn out millions and millions of such trained minds which can add to India's strength both within the country and outside the country. Our experienced professor has been in the field of economy, but as long as we were restrictive, we grew very moderately. The more we are integrating ourselves, the more we are growing, and our own confidence seems to be growing, and that seems to be happening in terms of policy in that field. I think experience shows that it has done much better as far as India is concerned, and it has served the larger interest in terms of investment, in terms of job creation, in terms of employment, in terms of poverty eradication much faster than the old conservative regime it had done itself. I have just two important points to make. The first is that when you enter this institution fresh after school, school education is a highly regimented education. You live in a discipline. You are forced to do everything within the time prescribed. College is the age when personalities develop. This is the age where you transform from boys to men. And similarly, this is a time when young boys, young girls come up and suddenly find themselves, as they pass out, more enlightened citizens. Their personalities grow. Their ideas and attitudes develop. Their career conscious develops. This is really the time for you, as most of you are on the verge of passing out, to really choose the road ahead. I think one fact which has changed in India is that India now, as a more liberalized economy and society, respects merit much more than it did in the past. The Bajaj family may be an exception, but if you look at most of the top industrialists which existed prior to 1991 and look at the top ones which exist today, you'll find a difference in the list itself. Today is a world which is highly competitive. If the survival of the fittest were ever true, it is today. And therefore we are now entering an age where what background, what economic strata, what communities you came from, over a period of time may not remain relevant. With a huge space for excellence awaiting in Indian society. The size of the market is very large. It is looking for men and women who attain that excellence. And those standards of excellence have become tougher. And as you enter your career streams, you probably have various roads to pick up on. You can run at a modest pace, or you can run at a fast lane. And I can tell you, you'll only find in a largely populated country a lot of crowding at the bottom. But those amongst you who put in that little extra and achieve that excellence will find a huge amount of space right on top. And that space is always available. Families and backgrounds won't matter. And therefore, this is the time in life when you're shaping your careers to decide whether you want to be on the fast track or you want to be on the medium tracks or are satisfied being even on the slow track itself. The second fact that you must all factor in is that when you choose your careers and your path, just as when an investor looks at India, he's not looking at only the state of economy today. He's going to look at what Indian economy will be 10 years from now. What is it going to be 20 years from now? Because he's going to invest his money keeping that in mind. And therefore, I can tell you, India is today becoming highly aspirational. It's becoming highly impatient. And therefore, that itself is now compelling governments and regimes to act. It's compelling us to make fast structural changes, many of which in the medium and the long term are going to leave much bigger footprints behind. And therefore 5 years and 10 years and 20 years from now, if we continue to grow at a pace which is our normal potential, and our normal potential today is that even at 7.5% growth, India is not a satisfied nation. It wants to grow faster. And if over the next 10 to 20 years we grow at that particular pace, the kind of opportunities which will open out, whether it's for investors or it's for young people looking into the careers, for the road ahead are going to be much bigger and much better. And the India that you are going to live in is going to be a much better India than the one which we saw when we were growing up. And certainly much better than some of the ones which other seniors older than me saw sitting on the dais here today. That's the kind of opportunity. Now, which one of you goes and grabs that opportunity? Who is motivated enough to do that? Who has that killer instinct to be perpetually on the fast track? I think is a challenge many of you will have to take up. And the field open for you is not only India. Because of this demographic differential, the world also needs the best of human minds. And I'm sure you will accept the challenges available which are going to come up. Use this opportunity to the fullest. And I'm sure you'll have a great career ahead of you. My best wishes to all of you, and my gratitude to Symbiosis for churning out such great human minds, and I'm sure it'll continue to work in the service of this country, not only in this great city of Pune, but also at the various other centers that it has established, and it is likely to expand much bigger in the years to come. Thank you very much once again.